Con Dao is one of the best, if not the best island to visit in Vietnam. In this video, we're going to talk about why and talk about the things to do and see and show you some of the things I did on a 5-day trip to Con Dao. So stay tuned and let's get into the video. So flying into Con Dao, you actually fly on a very small plane from Ho Chi Minh City. And if you are scared of flying, just be aware of that because it is a really small plane. But you fly over the Mekong Delta, which is beautiful. That's the river that runs through Vietnam. It actually goes through many different countries, but comes out in the Mekong region and comes out into the ocean, so you see that from above. You can also take the ferry from Vung Tau, the coastal city. That takes a little bit longer, of course, and you would usually have to stay over there in Vung Tau for a night, sleep over there, so that you can take the ferry early in the morning. But landing on Con Dao Island is amazing. You get closer and closer to the water. You can see the ships and the boats, and then the airstrip just comes out of nowhere and you land on it. It's also quite exhilarating, a really fun experience of flying to Con Dao. And then when you get off the plane, you can take a taxi to the main town of the island. And this is actually an amazing drive. There's beautiful scenery, winding roads. You can see the ocean and the mountains. It's a great way to get started in Con Dao. So when you stay on Con Dao, it's a very small island, so there's two main options for accommodation. You can stay at a beach resort, which often has a private beach, and it's a small island, so there aren't that many options. There aren't that many beachside resorts, and a lot of them are a little bit further away from the center of the town, and also some of them are a lot pricier as well. The other option is to stay in the town, which is closer to all the restaurants. You can walk around, and if you have a higher room in the hotel, you can also see the mountains and the beach, and some might have a rooftop pool. And the main beach of the island is right by the town, so you can actually walk down to the beach quite easily. So we stayed in the town and we felt happy with that choice overall because you could access everything really easily, and we stayed at the Mystery Con Dao Hotel. So in terms of food options, I was really impressed with all the restaurants that we went to. Right in the center of the town, there's a little place called An Oi, which is a brunch spot. It has a mix of typical brunch foods like smoothie bowls, but also some Vietnamese food options. Another great spot that we went to was the Beach House restaurant. Everything that we ordered there was great. They had freshly caught fish, which was delicious. And my parents were in Vietnam for this trip and they loved Con Dao as well. So in terms of time of year to come to Con Dao, we went in May and it was right before the rainy season. As is typical in Vietnam, you can never really predict the weather. So there was a bit of early rain, but luckily this was only one day where it rained. And it actually was quite nice. It was very peaceful and calming with the rain. So if you are planning a trip to Con Dao, if you want mostly dry, hot and sunny, you will want to go in January through to May before the rainy season starts. As for things to do in Vietnam, one of the top sites to see that I'd recommend is the Van Son Pagoda, which is a beautiful pagoda with a view of the ocean. You have to walk up a few hundred steps to get there, but it's worth it to see the view and the pagoda. It's quite a typical pagoda in Vietnam where a lot of Vietnamese people will go to pay their respects to ancestors and the deities. And you might see some monks there and some chanting, or a lot of people paying their respects and praying. Another good restaurant we went to was Infinity Cafe and Restaurant. They had pancakes, pizzas, and a whole lot of different foods. Also recommend that one. In terms of beaches, the main beach is the An Hai beach, and you can walk to it quite easily from wherever you are in the town. By the way, they've just redone all the pavements and sidewalks in Con Dao, so the whole town feels really new and clean. So it's actually great just to walk around everywhere. And you actually can use Grab, the ride-hailing service, to call taxis as well if you want to get taxis around. So An Hai Beach is the main beach where there's a lot of people swimming. It's beautiful, the water is clear, it's clean. It wasn't too busy at the time when we were there. I don't actually have footage from that because I was just swimming at the time. Then if you go to the other side of town, you'll get to the La Voi beach, which is a long, empty beach. When we were there was no one else on the beach. and it's right next to a forest which you can also walk through, and there's a memorial in there. So there are some stunning beaches on Con Dao. We didn't even go to all of them. I would love to be there even longer to explore more and just spend more time on those beaches. While the island is beautiful and there are stunning beaches, there is another side to Con Dao though. For a long period of Vietnam's history, Con Dao was a prison island. Con Dao was basically a large prison complex, and the entire island was used for that purpose for a long time in history. So if you'd like to learn about this, you can go to the Con Dao Museum, which is a very well put together museum, but an emotionally tough experience. I won't go into the details about the history, as I think it's best to experience it yourself when you go there. And at the museum you can learn more about it and more about the stories of the prisoners and the war heroes of Vietnam. The museum also contains more information about the island, the biodiversity, the history and the layouts of the island. And you can actually go to the prisons themselves, including seeing the infamous tiger cages where prisoners were kept. If you're heading to Con Dao, I think it's an important stop on your trip to visit the prisons, because Con Dao is not just a beautiful tropical island, and I think it's important to understand that when you visit the island. On a lighter note, Con Dao has some of the most stunning sunsets. If you go to the Con Dao Sunset Getaway, that's what it's marked as on Google Maps, you'll find an amazing viewpoint where you can watch the sunsets over the ocean. It's absolutely stunning, and there are also monkeys there. They're actually quite aggressive, so watch out if you're holding any food or anything like that. They could try and grab it, so be careful. We saw a few near misses of monkeys almost grabbing people's food, but they are also really cute and add to the atmosphere. There was also a little drink and food stall there, so we got some fried corn with shrimp, bap sao in Vietnamese, which is a surprisingly tasty snack, and it's a great spot just to chill, have something to drink and eat, and watch the sunset. Another fantastic restaurant was May Bistro. We went there twice. We ate bun xeo, the Vietnamese pancake, cà gà, which is the Vietnamese version of a curry, bò la lót, which is beef wrapped in leaves, and a few other delicious dishes. I highly recommend checking out their restaurants. A big highlight of this trip was the snorkeling trip that we went on. So we used a company called Con Dao Trip, and they took us out to the smaller islands around Con Dao, where there are coral reefs and you can snorkel. So we stopped at a few different spots and went snorkeling. Unfortunately, a lot of the coral reefs have deteriorated. A lot of the coral has died, unfortunately. But there was a fair bit of biodiversity, lots of different types of fish and starfish. And if you're there at the right time of year, you can also see turtles, which we didn't, but that would be awesome if you could go and see some of the turtles there. The boat ride itself was fun, and again, seeing a beautiful sunset from the boat. Also just swimming around the boat, going on a kayak. This was amazing. I highly recommend doing one of these snorkeling trips, or if you don't snorkel, just taking a boat trip out and about. It's a great way to see the whole island from the boat, see some of the different islands. One of the other top things to do in Con Dao is going to the national park. They have a large national park, and you can go to the main office and see the different routes that they are available. Heading into the national park, it is quite steep. Definitely go early in the morning if you want to avoid some of the heat. And the forests are beautiful, and there's caves quite early on in the walk. And there are several longer walks. If you go further, you can actually get to the different beaches that are within the national park. Another place that many Vietnamese people visit when going to Con Dao is the grave of Võ Thị Sáu, who died very young in the war in Vietnam and is considered a heroine of the Vietnamese people. So many people go to her grave to pay their respects and to pray. So it's possible to go to the graveyard where a lot of the prisoners of Con Dao are buried. And you'll see many other people there who have made the trip to pay their respects. Then flying back into Ho Chi Minh City, you can see the sheer size of the city and the real contrast between one of the best islands in Vietnam and also one of the biggest cities. And I think if you're living in Ho Chi Minh City, this is a great trip to do because it's nearby. The flight is less than an hour, I believe. And it's a great escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. Ho Chi Minh City's got a lot of energy, it's a great city to live in, there's a lot going on, but I think it is nice to get away from it from time to time and see the beauty of Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh City is where we're based at Ninja Teacher, where we run our teacher training course for those who want to move to Vietnam, get trained to become an English teacher and get a job teaching English in Vietnam. We help over 100 people per year with that entire process, so that you can actually live in Vietnam and experience beautiful places like Con Dao. Feel free to reach out to us at ninjateacher.com or download a copy of our Teaching English in Vietnam guide. I'll leave the links in the description below. And overall, a trip to Con Dao is highly worth it. I personally think it's the best island that I've been to in Vietnam. Phu Quoc has a lot of things going for it, but it has become more developed. I think Con Dao has that perfect balance of a lot of amazing nature, but is also really well maintained, fun things to do, great food, and I highly recommend taking a trip to Con Dao. That's all for this video. If you want more videos about living and teaching English in Vietnam, subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you soon in a new video. Peace.